Hey, I got a confession. Been losing all momentum. Just because it's easy, but that don't make it better. I wanna dig my hands deep down in the dirt. Take a walk along the street if I'm feeling dessert. All of this convenience just doesn't work for me. I wanna play with fire, let me get hurt. Can we take it back to 95? Before we had this drama in our life, just staring at the screen every day and night. I miss the rush of living in real life. Go get your DeLorean. Time living in real life. Go get your DeLorean. Go get your DeLorean. Yo, what you got in that bag? Candy, cigarettes, and a Playboy mag. Many used to have to work for that. Wait for me, gotta dial up. Can't call my landline cause it's all tied up. Just bike over then. Oh, oh, oh. It's amazing the subtle games that you are playing, and you don't even know I exist. But you have got me on your hit list, and you're conspiring. Girl, you are sexual and bad, and now you got this on your conscience. Now I'm unresponsive. Oh, but call your mama, tell her you love her. That's not good for you. Run through the fire, I'll walk the wire. I would sell everything I own. I'd swim the ocean, dance with the devil. I'd sell my soul to take you home. Can feel the floor underneath our feet. 5 shots through my chest as you watch me bleed. Every kick, drum, hit is a symphony. Every brush of your curves is the air I breathe. You speak, I am listening. Sweat rolls, girl, you're glistening. Slow-mo, pull me into the light, the light. There are people watching us, wishing they were obvious, instead of giving into the fright, the fright. Run through the fire, I walk the wire. I would sell everything I own. I'd swim the ocean, dance with the devil. I'd sell my soul to take you home. just takes and takes. One choice for the good of you, but not the one you make. But one worth dying for if you saw her shake, shake, shake. We can feel the flow underneath our feet. I am listening. We can feel the flow underneath our feet. You are glistening. We can feel the flow underneath our feet. I am listening. We can feel the flow underneath our feet. That's my bed for you. Run through the fire, out the wire. I would sell everything I own. I swim the ocean, dance with the dead. I'd sell my soul to take you home. Run through the fire, out the wire. I would sell everything I own. I'd swim the ocean, dance with the devil. I'd sell my soul to take you home. When you put your hand in my jacket, I'm thinking so irrational. You flew me international now. And we can spend hours reading the signals, but that's so unoriginal. What if we took this back to my house? Under all these lights, I gotta take a minute to calm down. But I feel like if I told you I was ready right this minute, do you think that it would turn you on? I just feel like you need to know. If I told you I was ready right this minute, would you just run off and tell someone? I just feel like you need to know. I don't wanna feel like we're wasting time. Tell me, should I go and call up a taxi? We can make out for play in the backseat. Please tell me now how that all sounds. You can sleep in while I make breakfast, watch cartoons and talk about exes. And if you're happy, stick around. I just feel like this is worth the risk. I never felt a quiet like this. If I told you I was ready right this minute, do you think that it would turn you on? I just feel like you need to know. If I told you I was ready right this minute, would you just run off and tell someone? I just feel like you need to know. Right here, right now, we're running out of things to talk about. Right here, right now, I'm about to let the truth come out. If I told you I was ready right this minute, do you think that it would turn you on? You tell me now. If I told you I was ready right this minute, would you just run off and tell someone? Keep my feet on the ground. If I told you I was ready right this minute, I just wanna do and lay you down. I just feel like you need to. It's clear. If I told you I was ready right this minute, would you just run off and tell someone? To know. If I told you I was ready right this minute, do you think that it would turn you on? I still remember your number, can say those digits by heart. With that first drink of the summer, I think about where you are. I dialed 235, are you alive? How I miss our late night drives and 4, 6 hours in. In my mind I flip a switch and 7-2, forgetting you is something I can't seem to do. Even though we were just kids, I close my eyes, I'm waiting for the light.
So last year, we were told that Trump having classified documents over at the Mar-a-Lago was a crime of the most egregious sort. We were told that him having these classified documents at the Mar-a-Lago was so bad, in fact, that he should never be allowed to run for office again. It was even so bad to the point where they actually had to do an FBI raid on the ex-president's house. That is how bad we were talking about when we were talking, when we were discussing these classified documents that Trump had. Yet what do we find out now? We now find out that Biden misplaced a bunch of classified documents at one of his think tanks. And yet, what do we hear? Silence. Well, maybe not silence. Maybe that's not fair. We hear a couple small articles here and there, but not nearly with the same vigor that they had against Trump when he had documents securely placed at his home. Trump had documents in his home. Biden misplaced them at one of his think tanks. And where is the, threat to our democracy crowd? Where is the, oh my God, maybe they are selling out government secrets crowd? Where is the FBI raiding Biden's think tank or just Biden's house or really anything in general? Where's the FBI just overall? It's almost like they just want this story to go away. The same thing they want to do with, of course, every story, right? They want all the negative press about Biden to always just dissipate and peter out and disappear. I mean, think of all the things that we have found out about Biden and realize for a moment that none of it has meant a damn thing up to this point. I mean, really, just what has happened thanks to the information we now know about Biden? Absolutely nothing. Because the media, for the most part, the mainstream media, doesn't want to cover it. But I have a question here. What happens if you choose to cover it? What happens if you choose to do what the media is not? What happens if you choose to talk about the stories that the media chooses to ignore? Well, you might get away with it for a while. The government probably won't do anything for a good while, to be perfectly honest. But eventually, if you become too effective at it, as we now know, someone like Tucker Carlson, who's very effective at it, you will be censored by the White House themselves. We now know that the White House was directly involved in censoring people like Tucker Carlson from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. Directly violating Tucker Carlson's First Amendment rights, directly violating really anyone's rights who the government had any hand in getting banned off these platforms. Yet again, what do we hear? We hear absolutely nothing about it. But there's a reason why they want to sit there and not report on the problems, and why, of course, they want to why they want to make sure they ban people like Tucker Carlson or really anyone who's too effective at breaking through the mainstream media, and so they continue to, of course, get away with their lies. They lied about what a recession is. They changed the definition of what a recession is just so they didn't have to admit we are in a recession. They change, of course, how they report inflation because they don't want to tell us what the real inflation numbers are. And what we now just saw from the Democrats over this past week, they were, of course, lying about what happened on January 6th. But we'll get to all of that and more, hopefully. But first, let's go ahead and go straight to this story with Biden just flat out misplacing classified documents and, of course, no one giving a damn. And right now, it's playing something on the computer. There we go. I don't know what the audio came from. I guess, again, these damn auto plays, I swear. All right. So here we have, Biden surprised to learn of classified documents at Penn think tank. I don't know what's in them. So not only is he surprised to know that he misplaced these documents, but he doesn't even know what was even in them in the first place. All right, again, these aren't stuff that's locked at his home. This was nowhere with him. This was nowhere near him. They were just going through a bunch of stuff and realized, oh, we have classified documents. President Joe Biden addressed the matter of classified documents that were removed from his private office in the Penn Biden Center for the first time on Tuesday, saying he was surprised to learn that they were in there and is cooperating fully, of course, with the Justice Department's review. Let me get rid of the easy one first, Biden began in response to a slew of reporters questioning the North American Leaders Summit in Mexico. People know I take classified documents and classified information seriously. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, mind you, this is a guy who worked closely with Hillary Clinton and, of course, endorsed her during the 2008 campaign. Or not 2000, why did I say 2008? 2016 campaign. A woman who, of course, had the most unsecure server ever known. I mean, they might as well had the password as password for them. Biden's never really cared about security. He's always let stuff leak. He's always talked about things he should not be talking about. Don't forget, this is the man who openly talked about his corruption in Ukraine, who openly said, hey, they were investigating this business that my son worked at, and I told him, if you don't fire that prosecutor who's investigating that business, I'll make sure y'all don't get funding. And then, of course, everyone in the crowd laughs. And he goes, no, I'm serious. That's exactly what I did. He's never cared about security, not one bit. They did what they should have done. They immediately called the National Archives and turned them over to the archives. I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there was any government records that were taken there to that office, the president added. But I don't know what was in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents there were. The documents from where Biden's... can't speak. What's going on here? The documents, which were from Biden's time as vice president, were discovered on November 2nd at Penn Biden Center, according to Richard Suber, the special counsel to the White House. Again, this is November 2nd. This is right around the time of the midterms. This is actually still right around the time when Trump was raided by the FBI for a very similar issue. Biden, nothing. Nada. In fact, the fact we're not learning about this until now says a lot. This was discovered back at the beginning of November. Around the beginning of November. And we're just now in 2023 finding out about this. It's because, of course, the media doesn't care. The media never cares. The media will never care about anything Biden does. The documents were not subject to any previous request or inquiry by the archives, Suber said on Monday's statement. Since the discovery, President's personal attorneys have cooperated with the archives and the Department of Justice in the process to ensure that any Obama-Biden administration records are appropriately in the possession of the archives. The same rules must apply to everyone, Cotton tweeted. Biden was critical of former President Trump's after FBI agents seized approximately 300 classified documents from his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida last August. And this is what Biden said. How could that possibly happen? How could anyone be that irresponsible? Trump kept these things in his home. Biden had this at one of his think tanks. So we're saying, how could he be that irresponsible? He took tons of documents, mind you, and he wasn't VP, he was the actual president. He could have easily said that all these documents are declassified before we moved them into the home, and boom, guess what? They're no longer classified documents. You have no idea that they were even truly classified, to be perfectly honest. So he had it under lock and key in his home, and that got the FBI's attention to such a point where they raided his home. They raided the house. Biden, absolutely nothing. Not a damn thing. So he said, how could anyone be that irresponsible? And I thought, what data was in there that might be compromised or might compromise sources and methods? The president told 60 Minutes in September. And it just totally irresponsible. Democrats, meanwhile, downplayed the discovery of the document, saying that they can't be compared to the investigation into Trump's handling of classified info. This is not Mar-a-Lago, Sheila Jackson of Texas told Fox News on Tuesday. This is not a refusal of hundreds and hundreds of documents. There's no comparison. They were locked in a locked closet. They were not accessible, and that's why the appropriate process was followed. I don't think it compares at all. Okay, for one, it being at Trump's house makes more sense than being in a think tank. I don't even know why it was in at a think tank in the first place. They should not have access to, any of the classified documents that Biden had while he was VP in the first place. Two, Mar-a-Lago was also on lock and key. All right, it was stored in a room that was also locked with, mind you, with a lock that the FBI themselves gave to Trump's people to lock the documents in. They were planning to go through all the documents to figure out what was classified and what could be released at a later date. They were following the system appropriately, as the FBI was telling them at least. Again, the FBI handed them the lock they used to lock the door that the FBI then went in and broke into. They handed them the lock. I think they would actually have had the key. This is, you're right to a certain extent, right? This is different than Mar-a-Lago. This is worse than Mar-a-Lago. If Biden had this at his house, I would kind of be a bit more understanding, right? Your president, your VP. Okay, well, guess what? You're going to and from different spots. You're still trying to do work nonstop. I understand how information like that can be left in the houses of elected officials. I totally understand that. But this is at one of his think tanks. All right, that's already a little weird in my opinion. Two, this is from the Biden administration. How long has it been there? And this has at least been there for about 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years. These classified documents have been there. He doesn't even know what's there. He didn't even know they were there. At least Trump knew where these classified documents were. Trump knew they were in the Mar-a-Lago. Now again, we can talk about whether or not any official should be allowed to have those kind of documents at their personal house, whether it be under lock and key or not. We can have that discussion. My issue here has less to do with either person keeping documents of any kind. It has more to do with the fact of the way that the FBI treated one person versus the other. If the FBI went and raided Biden's properties to see what other classified documents there were, I wouldn't have a thing to say about it. I'll say, all right, well, you know what? We're getting equal treatment under the law. Isn't that fantastic? And they say, oh, well, Trump had hundreds. Trump had hundreds. This is only, 10 or so from Biden. That's as far as we know. That's what they've reported. The FBI hasn't raided Biden, now have they? How many classified documents would they find if they raided Biden? Now, frankly, I think if they raid almost any ex-president, they're going to find tons of classified documents. I think if they sit there and raid Obama, they would find hundreds. Bush, they would find hundreds. I don't think it really matters. But when they say, oh, well, it's not as many. Well, it's not as many because you didn't look into it. It's not as many because no one was raided in this with the Biden documents here. It's to say it's a double standard is an understatement, right? I mean, we're not talking about double standards anymore. We're not. What we're talking about is the I can't say it all of a sudden, politicalization of the FBI, right? We're using government agencies as political weapons to bludgeon each other with. At the moment, the FBI answers to the Democrats. There was a time, mind you, when guess what? They were answering to the Republicans. There was a time when Bush, of course, had full control over what the FBI was going after. Now, of course, Trump never had control over the FBI. The FBI did whatever they could to keep him out of office. Don't forget, there was the FBI agents who even said, we are going to make sure he does not get reelected. We're going to make sure he gets impeached, actually, I think was their actual communications they had. So we know FBI agents were completely against him from the start. We know they dragged their feet, of course, disproving the whole Russia collusion hoax. But there was a time, of course, when the Republicans had control of the security apparatus, and they used it against anyone they disliked. Now the Democrats have, and they're going to use it against anyone they dislike. Here's the deal. I don't want it to be used by the Republicans against the Democrats. I want it gone. I want it to be done away with. I want to just completely demolish it, almost just to the ground. Now, we can maybe have some level of it. But right now, let's face it, you have the NSA spying on Americans. You have the IRS, of course, abusing their power to audit Americans who they don't like. Remember what happened under Obama with the IRS scandal. And, of course, now we have the FBI scandals where, of course, they were lying to Trump, where they were openly discussing how they could get Trump out of office. And, of course, now where they will sit there and spend resources to find Biden's daughter's lost diary. Again, FBI agents raided a home to find Biden's daughter's lost diary. They raided Trump's home for classified documents, and now we know that Biden has a bunch of classified documents that he left at one of his locations. And where's the FBI? Nowhere to be found, of course. Because right now, at this time, the FBI serves the Democrats. And I know there's a lot of Republicans out there who say, but don't worry, when we take control, they will be ours and we'll use them against the Democrats. I don't want you to use them against the Democrats. I want them demolished. I don't want them being used back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I want them done away with, as well as most other agencies. I'm not full libertarian, but I'm pretty close to it. Let's take down almost all these damn agencies at this point. But you see this clear abuse of power. And it's becoming more and more apparent. And now, what we've now found out thanks to a lawsuit, that they were actually in the process of censoring Tucker Carlson, as well as, frankly, hundreds of thousands of other Americans. So here we have an article over in the Daily Mail, and I apologize for all the ads popping up. I swear, the Daily Mail is terrible about the damn ads they have on here. We were censored by the White House. Tucker Carlson, let me say that again. We were censored by the White House. They were censored by the White House. Tucker Carlson slams Biden administration after a lawsuit reveals it pressured Facebook to censor him talking about vaccines. Now, mind you, this is just what we know at the moment. And if they were pressuring Facebook, you're telling me they weren't pressuring Twitter? And we know they're pressuring Twitter, actually. Thanks to Elon and the Twitter files, we know they were pressuring Twitter to censor other right-leaning individuals, right? And just really anti-establishment individuals in general, even far leftists who were against the forced medication of the populace, even they were censored against. So we know they're involved in Twitter. We know they're involved in Facebook. You're telling me they're not also involved in YouTube. You're telling me they're not also involved directly with Google search engine, Yahoo, any of those, any of these other search engines as well. They're involved with everything. But this is what we know so far. We know for a fact that they were pressuring Facebook to censor him for talking about the vaccines. Court documents show the White House director of digital strategy apparently urging Facebook executives to censor Tucker Carlson's show. Rob Flaherty? Man, that's such a terrible name, dude. Said a segment in which Carlson was questioning the efficacy of the COVID vaccines should not be trending. Well, who are you to decide that, Rob? Or Flaherty? The documents were released as part of a lawsuit against the Biden administration for allegedly colluding with social media executives. They were not allegedly colluding. We know now for a fact they were colluding. Now, maybe in this particular capacity, it's allegedly. Maybe that's what they're trying to say. No. Overall, we know for a fact they were colluding with Twitter. Not only thanks to the Twitter files, but the FBI themselves released a statement saying, yes, we were involved with Twitter, as we are involved with all other agencies, or as we're involved with almost all other social media companies and other industries. They sat there and admitted to it. And then, of course, at the end of their press release, it said, but, we didn't do exactly what you're saying. We did, but we didn't. And you're all a bunch of conspiracy theories for asserting, what you're asserting. So they admit to what they're doing and then turn around and say, but we weren't doing it. It was absolutely an unreal press release by them. But we know for a fact that at the very least, the FBI was directly involved in the censoring of American people already. It is not allegedly, it is a fact. It comes just weeks after documents show the Biden administration suppressing Twitter accounts for questioning the vaccines. Tucker Carlson slammed the Biden administration on his show Monday after court documents revealed it directly pressured Facebook to censor his show. Court documents released as part of a lawsuit against the Biden administration for allegedly colluding with social media executives to suppress stories revealed that the White House's director for digital strategy emailed Facebook monitors about a video in which Carlson debated the efficacy of the COVID vaccine. He publicly questioned at the time why vaccinated people should not return to normal life, leading Chelsea Clinton to publicly call on Facebook to take the video down. All because he was asking, if you're vaccinated, why shouldn't you return to normal life? And that's a good question, right? I mean, really, why shouldn't you return to normal life if you're already vaccinated? As far as I can tell, you definitely should. In fact, I would say, or if you've had COVID in general, right? I mean, I've had COVID. I mean, I had COVID right when they were starting to say, COVID detected in Seattle. I pretty much went to a trip DC and caught it, and it was to a point where they didn't even have the full test, so I guess I might not have had it. I don't know. It was bad, though. I was on my back, just felt like I was dying. My wife was seriously concerned about me, and the doctors had not a clue what to do because it was so early on. So listen, COVID was bad, but I got it early, and I wanted to go right back to my daily life, and I didn't understand why that wasn't an option. Because, I mean, I say I don't understand why it wasn't an option. I'm saying that in a somewhat sarcastic way because, well, let's face it, the reality is they wanted power. They wanted power to lock everything down. They wanted power to take control over the populace. Even if I had not had COVID, even if I didn't, I didn't get vaccinated, but let's say, even if I did get vaccinated, I wouldn't agree with any lockdowns. I'll still say you should go back to normal life anyway. Personally, that's just me. You do you, though, right? I'm just saying the government shouldn't be allowed to forcefully shut down businesses, forcefully say that if you go to church, we're going to arrest you, and all the crazy stuff going on across our country. But I mean, this is the most benign statement ever, right? That why don't vaccinated people just return normal life, since they are, of course, vaccinated? And if they can't, then clearly the efficacy on the vaccine is rather low. It's such a benign. Yes. It's a very simple question. It shouldn't be hard for them to answer if, of course, they were telling the truth. But the reality is, of course, as we now know, they weren't telling the truth. So they were trying to go after anyone who even remotely disagreed with them. The director, Rob Flaherty, also, that name, I'm probably saying it totally wrong, but I'm going to call him Flaherty, also pressured Facebook to reduce the availability of the story as it worked to tamp down on what it deemed to be misinformation about the vaccine. Carl said on his show Monday night. Carlson and his guest, Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry, said the move directly violated Carlson's First Amendment rights. Yes, because guess what? The government cannot utilize a private corporation to get around the First Amendment. That's not allowed. The government can't say, hey, we can't censor you, but this group, we'll make sure they can do it for us. That's already been ruled on before in the past. The government cannot use private organizations as a way to usurp the Constitution. That's not how it works. It comes just weeks after it was revealed that the government pressured Twitter executives to censor any COVID information that was true but inconvenient. That's right. It could be true, but if it's inconvenient, they're going to shut you down. On his show Monday, Carlson shared excerpts of the court document showing Flaherty emailed Facebook executives on April 2021 saying the top post on Facebook about vaccines today is Tucker Carlson saying they don't work. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. Tucker Carlson said that, hey, government, why can't we return to why can't we return to our normal day if we're vaccinated unless it doesn't work? He's simply asking a question. That's not really much of an assertion. That means, be honest, it's more so the government making the assertion for us, right? If they say that, hey, you're vaccinated and can't, but you still can't go back to normal life, they're asserting that the efficacy is very low when it comes to the vaccine. He then allegedly went on to pressure social media giant to follow its strategy of reduction. If reduction means pumping our most vaccine-hesitant audience with Tucker Carlson saying it doesn't work, then I'm not sure it's a reduction, Flaherty wrote in an email. A Facebook employee later responded that he agreed and was running this down now. The move was apparently part of the White House's effort to tamp down on what it deemed misinformation about the vaccine. So, of course, you have the what's it called from 1984? Crap! Someone help me out here. Something of truth, right? God, I'm blanking on this all of a sudden. But you know what I'm talking about from 1984. Oh God, that's going to drive me absolutely nuts. That's going to drive me absolutely nuts all day long. Someone in the comments let me know what was it called? Something truth. God, I'm going to kick myself in the ass for not remembering that one. It was never really a secret that there were huge problems with the COVID shots. Carlson began his show pointing to the Biden administration over the VAERS database that indicated a large number of risks associated with the jab. We tried pointing it out more than a year ago, not because we have a problem with vaccines or anti-vaxxers, but because if you're going to force people to take something, you probably ought to know what it is and what effects it might have. But in trying to say that, we were censored, and now we know we were censored directly by the White House. And then, this is the guy right here. This is Rob Flaherty. Why is this man not being rung up on charges of violations of Tucker Carlson's First Amendment rights? You have the direct emails of him stating to Facebook that they need to get rid of Tucker Carlson. We know for a fact now that this man, Rob Flaherty, that he violated an American's First Amendment rights, using the government's power to suppress the speech of a fellow American. And what accountability will there be for him? What accountability does he deserve? Will be a good question. I mean, more than likely, I assume the general punishment's probably a slap on the wrist, to be perfectly honest, right? But the reality is, a clear violation of First Amendment rights like this, you need to make an example. There needs to be an example made. I mean, a complete loss of his job at a minimum, obviously, and somehow make it so he can never take any sort of government position ever again because of his clear abuse of power that he has shown. Not only that, but he probably should serve some jail time for it as well. These are people who, they didn't accidentally cross a line here. It's not like they were doing what they thought was in best interest and just accidentally crossed over the line when it comes to violations of someone's rights. This wasn't an accident. There was no gray area here. It was direct. It was them directly saying, censor the opinion of this American citizen. If they did it for Carlson, you know they did it for other people. You know that they did it for probably Steven Crowder. You know they probably are talking about people like Tim Pool. They're probably talking about Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, all of the whole bunch over there at Daily Wire. You know they're talking about the Blaze. You know they're talking about anyone who is effectively breaking through their system. He is not alone. Rob Flaherty here is not alone. There are many others working in government probably like him. When will we see them held accountable? When will we see anyone who's behind what was going on Twitter held accountable? We won't. Because the law means nothing to Democrats. To them, to Democrats at least. And even to some Republicans. There's this idea that, of course, the ends will justify the means. That so long as we're going after something that is good, it's okay if we do whatever it takes to get there. And so these Democrats feel, of course, oh, well, they're doing something good. If they don't retain power, the democracy will be lost. Oh, no, not our precious democracy. Even though, of course, it would be better off if we were less democratic, in my opinion. We're a republic, not a democracy. But, they feel they're going after the good. So they have no problem in violating our First Amendment rights like he did here. They have no problem with it whatsoever. And it really shows that there's never any accountability for them after they get caught. Again, the FBI directly admitted to what they were doing with Twitter. They directly admitted to censoring thousands of Americans. No accountability. Why not? Because at the end of the day, they don't care that they're caught. They will sit there and circle the wagons to protect one of their own because it's in the interest of their greater good. That is how these people look at it. So, goes on, Laundrie went on to talk about the suit filed with Schmidt back in October, saying it is about whether or not the government basically suppressed American speech. He said Schmidt suspected the Biden administration of silencing views they disagreed with, and the evidence in the case right now is showing us that's exactly what happened. He said, adding, it's clearly a First Amendment violation. Of course it is. Suit accused the Biden administration of working hand in hand with the social media giant to censor news stories that reflect negatively upon the White House. Throughout this case, we have uncovered disturbing amounts of collusion between big tech and big government, Laundrie said in a statement when the suit was first filed in October. The egregious attack on our First Amendment will be met with an equally full-hearted defense of the rights of the American people. And it has gone a little bit more about the case, and obviously I'll put the link of the article in the description below. Really highly recommend going through the entirety of what they're reporting here, because I'm telling you, we are finding one thing out day after day after day at this point. I mean, really think about it. In the past year alone, what have we found out about the federal government? We found out the FBI colluding, of course, or the abuse of FBI power to raid the home of Trump, looking for classified documents where we now know they would never do such a thing for Biden. We know that they were directly involved in censoring Americans on Twitter, We know they were directly involved now in censoring Americans on Facebook. We know they were lying about different aspects of the jab. There were certain aspects of it we weren't allowed to question. And when it turns out, oh, they knew all along, yet weren't telling us anything about it. They knew its efficacy rating, yet wouldn't tell us. How many more things do we need to see before we realize the government does not care about us? It doesn't care about anyone in this country. It cares about power and maintaining that power. You see through the censoring of the American people that they don't care about protecting your rights. They care about protecting themselves. Any American who comes out speaking against them will be removed from the public square swiftly and kind of quietly. Kind of creepy, right? Swiftly and quietly. They will be removed. They try to remove most of them before they get too big of a following, because let's face it, they can't just go and ban Ben Shapiro tomorrow. Even though Ben Shapiro might push their buttons a bit when it comes to trans issues, they're not going to ban him tomorrow because he has too big of a following and it would have too big of a fallout. But smaller creators, which we know they were doing on Twitter, they will go after left and right to make sure no one can rise too high. And here's the thing. Eventually they're going to stop caring. Eventually they will stop caring, and eventually they are going to go after these bigger creators. They've already started really, YouTube has really started going after Steven Crowder. Really going after him pretty heavily. The good part is he has a substantial following over on Rumble, so that might save him. I hope so. It's a good show, right? I mean, too bad he doesn't do much around Christmas and January and all that. He takes that long vacation, and we got nothing to watch on our morning shows anymore. But, of course, he deserves a vacation. But when he comes back, how long before he gets another strike? How long before he gets another strike for something that the government pressured YouTube to actually put into place? Mind you, it was the government who told alliance companies to put in their terms of service the saying that you can't question the efficacy of the vaccines. That's one of the things Crowder got in trouble for. It was the government who told multiple social media agencies to start censoring people who questioned the validity of any election. Of course, again, they're allowed to question the validity of any election they want. They called, Trump not my president for, his entire 4 years, and still to this day consider him, illegally elected and all that crap. They could do that all day and night. Hillary Clinton says that she never lost. Stacey Abrams claims that she never lost. So they can get away with it. But people on the right, they can then use that to ban them. When it comes to calls of violence, what do? Well, they don't ban Antifa. They don't ban Black Lives Matter. But they do ban just regular people who made a joke. It's pretty crazy, and just how long will this keep going, and how many cases like this do we have to continue to see before we actually do something about it? When will there ever be any real accountability? That's all I'm asking. When will there be accountability? The reality is they know that if they back off on allowing people to, if they back off on their censorship and actually allow people to talk, they'll continue to get called out for their BS. And a great example of this is what Biden got called in with his January 6th comments. That was, oh boy, it was bad. So I'll pull this up right here real quick.
Today is a ceremony to honor heroes of January 6th. We also recognize the late U.S. Capitol Police Officer Billy Evans. His family's with us today. 3 months after January 6th, while they're still cordoning off the Capitol because threats by these sick insurrectionists continued to be profligated on the internet. Again, all America saw what happened. What Officer Evans was killed defending the checkpoint he'd had to go through to get up to the Capitol because of these god-awful sick threats that continue to move forward.
Okay, notice his words there for a second. He never says it was an insurrectionist, quote unquote, who killed him. He says, oh, well, he was protecting a gate that was only put up because of these. He was out there because of the protesters on January 6th. But he's saying it all in a way to imply that it was one of the people a part of January 6th that killed William Evans. The reality is William Evans was not killed by anyone on the right. He was killed by a black supremacist, a person who followed the Nation of Islam, Noah Green, I believe his name. And I think there was actually one over here. Someone who brought this up. Yep. Noah Green. He was, again, part of the Nation of Islam, huge Black Lives Matter supporter, and he ran him over with a truck. Biden went out there, literally implying that it was January 6 protesters who killed this officer. But they keep doing this. They keep lying about what happened on January 6. The only person who died on January 6 was Ashley Babbitt. And mind you, Ashley Babbitt the entire time was trying to de-escalate what was happening around her. All right, she threw them off. The barricade that she got shot on, she threw someone off earlier before then. She was shot in about point-blank range with 2 officers flanking her already, all right? And it was a straight-up execution of this woman. And listen, I'm not defending people rioting. I don't like people rioting, all right? I really don't. But when the FBI comes out and says, again, here we go back to the FBI. When the FBI comes out and says, hey, we can't comment whether or not we had instigators in the crowd during January 6th. How am I supposed to believe there wasn't instigators in the crowd on January 6th? When they are asked directly, hey, this Ray Epps guy, was he one of your people? And the FBI says, yeah, we can't comment. Okay, so I'm going to assume he's one of your people. When it comes to the American citizen, when it comes to an individual, we always believe an innocent till proven guilty. When it comes to government, we believe guilty until you be transparent. You need to prove your innocence to us because you are the one who has a monopoly on force. We can't just trust you. We need to verify. We need to verify what you're doing. And the FBI will not admit to whether or not they had instigators in the crowd on January 6th. No one will ask, hey, how are those giant magnetic doors that could stop a effing elephant from breaking through? How did they get open? Who opened them? Where is the recording of that? Hey, where's the other recordings of Ashley Babbitt? You know how many cameras are in that building and they just say, oh, well, we didn't have cameras around that particular area. No, it turns out they did. They just haven't released any of them for some reason. It's absolute insanity. So again, I don't like rioters. I really don't. I think rioting is a very stupid thing to do for the most part, but you can't expect me to be too upset about it when, for one, it looks like the FBI was directly involved in instigating a lot of the actions on January 6th, as well as, of course, now you have politicians claiming that officers who died from black supremacists were killed by January 6th protesters. And this isn't the first time. I mean, here's a picture from Bloomberg Quick Take, and someone kind of edited over this. Pelosi held a moment of silence for the 4 law enforcement officers who died because of January 6th. Brian Sicknick, he didn't die from January 6th. He died of a freaking stroke multiple days after. Jeffrey Smith, suicide. Not January 6th related, just suicide. Howard Liddinggood, same deal, suicide. Billy Evans, or William Evans, ran over by a truck. I should say ran over by a black supremacist, murdered by a black supremacist. They have been lying about January 6th for so long. They have continued to lie about January 6th. Just again and again and again. They wish an officer was murdered there. They wish an officer would be killed there. They want a right-wing protester to kill an officer, because then they could really do that. And here's the thing, even though none of these people were actually killed by any protester on January 6th, they still are trying to make it out to be as if they were. So just think of how bad this would be if actually the protesters were not mostly peaceful and did actually kill an officer. It would have been, they would really be running with it then. But fortunate for the right, for the most part, they were mostly peaceful in the actual sense, right? I mean, if they're going to sit there and say burning down an entire town and and attacking people in the street is a mostly peaceful protest when it comes to Black Lives Matter, we can say January 6th was a mostly peaceful protest. I mean, people were staying inside the damn ropes when they entered the Capitol building. They won't talk about many aspects that happened that day. We still don't know what happened with the pipe bombs, but they'll lie about it as much as possible. And that's why they need to also be able to censor people. That is why they want to censor people, because they don't want people calling them out on this bullshit. They don't want people calling them out on this. They want people to sit there and accept their lies as fact. All right, they want to ban and censor Tucker Carlson because he was pointing a lot of this stuff out. He was pointing a lot of this stuff out when it came to the COVID stuff as well. And mind you, I'm still kind of so-so on Tucker Carlson. I'm not really much of a populist. I don't know, I guess, constitutionalist, a traditional constitutionalist. I don't think people, I don't want the populace deciding things. I don't like the idea of democracy in general. I want more of a republic system. I want certain democratic institutes. But for the most part, I don't like the fact our senators are elected by popular vote. I want them to be appointed by the state senate. I believe in the idea of, there's an old question that says, where are you going to most likely find justice? And, maybe we'll start closing with this because, we're kind of towards the end here. But I really want to ask you all this. Where are you most likely to find justice? A king, a senate, or a mob? We know it's not a king because, of course, absolute tyrants. We know mobs lead to what happened during the French Revolution, some of the worst violence ever committed. The idea of a democracy, Aristotle even said it's the most shortest lived and bloodiest form of government ever created. Democracy is absolutely terrible. It is evil. It is atrocious. If 51% of the people say it's all right to suppress the rights of 49% of the people, they'll do it because, hey, it's what the majority wanted. It's an evil, terrible way of thinking of things. Now, a Senate obviously has its problems. It has oligarchs, right? It's not great. But through a system of checks and balances, I believe a Senate is still the best option to achieve true justice. So, I personally like that. I want to get rid of as much Democrat institutes as possible for the most part and get more on a true Republican or true Republic stance that we originated with. I don't know how I even got here. I had to go off on that tangent, though. What I will say, though, is all this stuff is connected, right? From no one reporting, no one heavily in a vindictive manner reporting on Biden misplacing classified documents, to them, of course, going out of the way to censor people who would be ballsy enough to bring that up and actually try to spread that information, who are effective at spreading that information. And of course, their countless lies they wish to tell directly to the American people. It's all connected to a very large degree. They have control of the institutions. They have control of the mainstream media. They're maintaining now control over social media, or at least somewhat. They have a good hold on it, right? Elon Musk with Twitter, hey, that's a good start. Rumble, fantastic, right? BitChute, really great. I know they don't have them. I know BitChute especially doesn't have those reputable people on there, but you know what? They don't censor people for your speech. Fantastic. There are other alternatives out there that are being created. And it'll be interesting to see what we going forward and see if these new alternatives ever get corrupted by the FBI and other government agencies as well. But what do y'all think? I think we're going through dark times. I think we're going to continue to go through some dark times for quite a while. I don't think we're even close to the end of this. I really think we're in for a really terrible, probably next 8 or so years. I'm not as optimistic as some people are in the short term. I'm optimistic in the long term, though. I'm optimistic that through turmoil and through, put it this way. Weak times create weak men. Tough times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. The countless circle. I think I'm messed up there in the beginning. But good times create weak men. We had our good times. We are now weak. Now we're being, now we have a mini tyranny happening right now with people losing their actual God-given rights. And that's going to lead us through some tough times. And through those tough times, those who are strong will break forward and I think in the end win out and create, again, good times. I don't think that's going to come in the next 4 years. I don't think that's going to come in the next 8 years. I think that might come in our kids' generation. I hope that my son is strong enough to stand up to people like this and to speak his mind, no matter what it might be. But I mean, it's not going to be soon, I don't think. I really don't. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Either way, hope you've enjoyed this. I know it's been a long time since I've done a live stream. It's been a long time since I've done any type of stream or any real political stuff in general. So I'd like to get back doing more of it. Definitely fumbling over my words here today, though. Definitely fumbling over my words here today. Maybe I'll get better over time. Maybe as I do more of these, maybe it'll start flowing a bit more natural. I'll work on it. I promise I'll work on it. Either way, I hope you all have a good rest